Alright, jumping right in. So right here in the prologue, the very first trick of the game, uh, really what you're going to see is rolling right here as the cutscene triggers, and that allows Max to get a little bit further ahead um, in the cutscene, because he'll complete the roll even though the cutscene's playing. And that right there was a super jump, a super great trick. Pretty much what happens is if you switch to a one-handed to two-handed weapon or a two-handed to one-handed weapon, and as Max switches, you jump, there's a very small window that you can actually double his height in the jump, and that actually allowed me to skip a cutscene that plays typically when you go up the stairs, which saves about 15 seconds from intended strats overall. So the super jump is very, very prominent trick in this game, and um, and actually, I purposely lowered the FPS from 60 to 30 just to have a better window of time to get the super jumps. And coming into Roscoe Street, this level's pretty interesting because there's a few risky strats that you can do.
The station was drenched in gloom. Alex was a ghost, nowhere to be seen. I'd have to look for him.
Overall, though, this level's pretty textbook, I would say. It's the enemies are
Death was in the air at Roscoe Street.
quite easy to take down, and that's what's good about these early game most of the levels in the early game, the enemies are, you'll usually get really good damage rolls against them and take them out easily. And really, this level, what I want to accomplish is just gathering up my variety of guns and ammo that I'm going to be using. So right there, I got the Desert Eagle off that guy. Gonna have to get this guy for the shotgun. And the shotgun is really, really good in the beginning of the game because you can take out most guys in, just one quick shot. You don't really have to go into bullet time or anything crazy like that. Unfortunately, you do have to trigger this guy to get him to unlock the control room door. And I'm actually going into this with a lot of damage. It's quite scary, this next room. And here's a good glitch. Quick save into a cutscene, and when you quick load, you gain control of Max during the cutscene. So that allows me to jump in front of this guy and take him out and get into the next room before the cutscene even ends. And here I used to use the Desert Eagle, but the shotgun is a bit faster. It's riskier, but it's slightly faster than Desert Eagle, so. And then probably coming up here is the most major glitch of the entire run, known as the Dead Man Walking glitch. And what's going to happen is I'm going to quick save into this cutscene, just like how I did with the guy when he was opening the door. Except during this cutscene, I gain control of Max, and I'm going to kill Max during the cutscene by running in front of the train. And what that ends up doing is it kills Max, but the game thinks that it can't really be too fair that Max is dead or that he died during a cutscene. So the game forcibly keeps Max alive, but it puts you at full damage. If you look at the health there, Max is technically dead. And when you're dead in this game, the enemies they don't want to waste your ammo on you because they think you're dead. But you still have control of Max, so this will last up until Chapter 6, Part 1, Chapter 6, which if you're looking at the splits is Fear That Gives Men Wings will be the next split where we deactivate the Dead Man Walking glitch. So pretty much for these levels, it's all about movement, optimizing how you move throughout the level. And there is an example of a bad damage roll, because that guy has dual Berettas, and I'm trying to stock up as much Beretta ammo as I can. And unfortunately, the shotgun didn't take him out, so instead of wasting the time to get the Beretta ammo, I'm just going to move on past it. My main thing with these levels, or these early chapters, is that I just don't want to stop moving. And there was a super jump up the stairs, and I think I get this one too, no. I always go for the super jumps up the stairs. It's much faster than running, and even if you don't get it, it's kind of you don't really lose any time, but the possibility of just leaping up the entire flight of stairs does save about a second to second and a half, which is pretty major in these early chapters.
The bank robbers had left their tools on the table. Judging by the detonators, the crooks had bought enough explosives to send Lady Liberty into orbit.
And these early chapters are kind of interesting too, because most of the mid to late game, essentially what the main goal of speedrunning is just to get from point A to point B. There's kind of an area where the next level will trigger, and you just want to get max to the next level. But these early ones kind of have these objectives in a way. Like Roscoe Street Station had me grabbing the transit worker. This one you have to go grab the detonators to open this door. So it's a little bit different, but these kind of the design is a bit different. There's things that you just can't skip. And here's a good cutscene. It's about a little over a minute long. Poor Alex. But yeah, like I said, these opening chapters are pretty standard. If you've watched Max Payne runs before, if you watch me do them or anyone else, which is rare, it's all about just moving Max throughout the levels and not letting the enemies get in your way and block you, because it's very easy to lose like a second, 2 seconds.
I could do. He was dead. I could tell by the empty, accusing stare of his eyes.
And then there's also a lot of optional super jumps that you can do up the stairs to save time, and it's quite optimized. And I don't get the super jump there. That super jump saves a significant amount of time, because that trigger to end the level is actually it's like a horizontal plane that's just above the stairs. So if you can get a super jump at the base of the stairs, you'll actually shoot through the trigger of the end of the level, and you can get that cutscene early, or the comic strip early.
Blown. The door slammed shut behind me, and then I was dodging.
And here's the interesting glitch that I completely just mess up. You can get multiple shots out of the shotgun, increase its fire rate by falling off a ledge as you shoot. So I actually get 3 shots off just falling, or jumping on top of the couch and then falling off of it as I'm shooting. The fire rate kind of resets itself. Unfortunately, though, you ideally want to kill both of those guys with your iteration of using that increased fire rate. Instead, I got the second guy to just kind of just rolled around the room for a minute, and that ends up losing me a bit of time overall. And this level's really straightforward. You just make your way through the hotel here. Don't let guys get in your way. I actually have a really good amount of Beretta ammo, so that's the only important thing at this point.
I had to be careful.
And you got to open this door to get these guys to come out of this one. And you have to be careful here, because even though Max is with the dead man walking glitch, you can still take damage. It's not that you're invincible.
The hooker had left her diary on the table.
So any type of environmental damage or fall damage will kill Max. So like shooting that water heater and dropping down, it's very easy to die there. So you have to be a little cognizant about your timing and where you're landing. Same goes with super jumps. You can die from the fall damage of a super jump, so you have to be cautious about that. And already you can see I'm plus 6 seconds behind, which is pretty miserable for this stage of the game, because usually I'm right on target at even, or a second or two ahead, a second or two behind. But to be 6 seconds behind is just kind of I've had a lot of enemies get in my way, or I'm not getting these super jumps. I didn't get that one there. But it's okay. It's very, you have to get yourself in the mental state that it's not that these early chapters don't matter, but there's so much more time save in the end game that 6 seconds over, losing a second or two per chapter here is not a big deal, when you're most likely going to be fighting to not lose 30 to 40 seconds later on. It's such a huge contrast between what the beginning of this game is versus what the rest of it is. and I get this super jump first try, so I can actually trigger the end of this level early. Instead of dropping down to get these doors open, you could just jump right over that gate and get into that end area of the level. And that's kind of what I'm talking about, is that most of these chapters are just, you know, if Max is standing in what's deemed as the end of the chapter will happen, so it's just a matter of getting there. And already, you know, looking at the splits, now I'm a second ahead. Getting that super jump first try was a big help compared to my last run. I think my last run I took, you know, 3 or 4 attempts of getting a super jump, and that happens a lot in this game, and that's what makes it so hard to really optimize this game. Is super jumps are just so difficult to do, and you know, if it takes you 2 or 3 attempts,
it was a lucky break. The goons inside were spooked.
I usually
more bombs could still be ticking inside, and the cops would already be on their
I
way.
usually kind of, the way I see it is,
on the top floor.
every missed attempt at a super jump costs you 2 seconds. So every time you have to retry a super jump, there's 2 seconds. So I always try, even though, you know, you want to get it first try a super jump every time, it's just not going to happen throughout the course of the run. So I always just, if I get it second or third try, I'm fine.
The whole building was rigged with explosives.
And then in this chapter, what I'm looking to do is to get some Ingrams, because Ingrams are, they have the fastest fire rate in the game, and they're quite powerful at this point. So I purposely kill the guys that have the Ingrams, and then right here I get the painkillers and essentially undo the Dead Man Walking glitch by using those painkillers as soon as I pick them up. So the start of the next chapter, Dead Man Walking glitch is no longer a thing, and the enemies will be shooting at me. The guy has dual Ingrams, so it's a nice pickup to get. And then in this chapter, you're going to also see a new glitch. And it's not really too new, but what ends up happening is just how I quick save into a cutscene, and then you quick load, and then you gain control of Max. You can actually do that at the start of the level. So I'm quick saving as the next level is loading. And so as I'm spamming quick save there, right, I load as the next level loads. And what I can do is gain control of Max while he's giving his little monologue or whatever it may be. Super jump over that, skips a cutscene. And then most of this level is completely skipped from the standard game. So now you can see the enemies are shooting at me, and it's quite scary. You know, this is where, you know, I start using bullet time a bit more to make sure they're not getting me. Miss that jump there, land fine. Do the super jumps up these windows, because the end of the level is actually at the top of this building. So you can super jump to the very top of the building and just get to the end of the level trigger without actually having to chase Vinnie Gognitti throughout multiple buildings and rooftops. Quick save here, gain control of Max during the cutscene, and that lets me just roll right on by.
Gognitti hitched a ride. To catch him, I'd have to follow his lead.
So typically, I mean, this is a good pace, you know. 12:33 coming into this chapter. I've had as low as like 12:20, you know. So it just goes to show those 6 seconds that I lost, you know, the first 4 chapters really do matter. Quick save into this chapter.
He was riding slowed down. Gognitti made his move.
So I actually, what ends up happening is as this cutscene plays, you don't really have control of Max until a certain point. And what the game's going to do, the game's going to forcibly spawn Max on top of the roof where he's supposed to be. But the game spawns Max there as the cutscene is still playing. So while the cutscene's playing, I'm going to jump off the roof to get to the alley below, because I won't take any damage during the cutscene. So you can see here, as Vinnie turns and the camera angle is going to change, I start spamming jump. And right now what Max is doing is he's jumping off the roof onto the ground. And you can see the landing animation there. And I took no damage because it happened technically during the cutscene. But landing down here in the alley, which you shouldn't really be able to get to, you can just run through these gates and it will put you about halfway through the chapter. Get the super jump over, and now we're already about the halfway point of this chapter. And we get to skip all the cutscenes that show Vinnie, you know, like running away and doing all that. And this is why I grabbed the Ingrams, because it makes these guys go down super easily. That guy has a grenade that I want as well. Over the course of part 1, you want to collect 2 grenades, specifically for the Vinnie Gognitti fight. And I'll show you what happens with those. So this section here, it's pretty much just memorizing the enemies and what they like, where they shoot or what they're doing, what their movement pattern is. The Ingrams help a lot, especially with rooms like this. This room could be chaos, it usually is, but I've come down with a pretty good method to clear those guys out without, you know, too much of an issue. So I'm going to quick save into the Vinnie fight, and I already have the grenades ready to go. Typically 2 mobs of enemies spawn with Vinnie, but you can just take them out with these grenades during the cutscene. So I end up tossing both grenades into those 2 alleyways, so it's just me and Vinnie. And the Ingrams make pretty easy work of Vinnie there. And coming into Ragnarok, I actually believe this is a really good Ragnarok. There's a lot of, probably the most difficult super jumps in the game are in this chapter. So again, quick save in,
with its dark messages,
gain control of Max while he's doing his monologue.
Just like Jack Lupino.
Gives you a really good jump start on these chapters. So if you play through the level like normal, you'll eventually get to a room where you could shoot a guy down through the trapdoor. But you can just super jump through this trapdoor. It's technically open, so that's good. And by super jumping through there, you miss the trigger that activates these guys, so these guys won't shoot at you. And notice I've been killing guys with Ingrams specifically, because Ingrams are a major component of part 1, especially with the boss fights. And these guys, I use bullet time, really take my time to make sure I'm getting them, because they can just end your run right there. And that guy's really inaccurate all the time, so I don't worry about him. You can run up top, avoid all the enemies, even though they're shooting at you, so you have to keep moving. Open up the stage, and then here comes one of the most notorious super jumps. And you can get up onto these little barriers there that will just pretty much guide you to the end of the level. And the major time save there is that you don't have to flip the switch to get those barriers up, and you also don't have to worry about enemies. You're not wasting time shooting guys or, you know, going into bullet time to dodge them. Once you learn their pattern, you can just pretty much super jump up there and not have to worry about them. And this chapter is very
This was the rotten core of the Big Apple.
this is a very difficult chapter to do well.
Spider at the center of his web, waiting. The vapors in the air started to make my head swim.
The main strategy up here is to get up to the area where the enemies spawn, and that will actually let you basically, because all the enemies spawn at the same point, and what ends up happening is once you kill one enemy, another enemy spawns in the same exact spot. So if you could just get up to where the enemies spawn, you could just pretty much spam your Ingrams, just like so, and pretty much kill them all in a single wave. Just like that. And then there's another guy back here who also is another chain of spawns. And yeah, take out these guys that you have to dodge them a bit because they throw Molotovs, and they could be annoying. Quick save into this cutscene here, and I get control of Max, so while, you know, Jack Lupino's laughing and doing his whole thing, I can actually just lay rounds into him. It makes for a really good quick kill here in this it really trivializes that boss fight. And now we're at the first nightmare sequence. There's a few good strats in this chapter here, even though it's a pretty boring chapter. I end up quick saving into the chapter to get control of Max.
The baby was crying.
So now I'm just rolling. And the reason why I'm actually side rolling here is typically you don't want to do a side roll like this because it's considered a form of bullet time, and it actually slows the game down every time you roll to the side like this. So it's not good to do in normal chapters unless you're specifically dodging somebody. But in the dream sequences, you are stuck in perpetual bullet time. And I jumped right there at the corner because it skips a cutscene. But yeah, you're stuck into a perpetual bullet time. So rolling is the fastest movement you can do in bullet time. So since the game forces you into bullet time, rolling is faster than running in the dream sequences alone. And there is an interesting strat right there, is that I quick saved, like at the very end of my roll, I quick save because it kind of forces Max to be in the upright position straight away again. And a nicely placed roll here,
Michelle's diary,
and you can skip that cutscene.
Max, no, please, Max. Why? I didn't mean to.
And then you can just go ahead and get the final cutscene here of the chapter. So that's part one. It was pretty exciting.
Murderer! You killed her!
Nothing like that ever happens in a real world.
Part two is really the kind of the meat of the run. There's a lot going on, and you want to go fast. So the main thing that you battle throughout part two is that you are very limited in ammo, and you have to kind of be accurate and hope for like really good damage rolls and.
All I had was
Because there's a good cache of weapons here in this chapter, but I just completely skip all of it.
No match for Frankie's men.
Because,
Have to play hide and seek.
I mean, it's possible. I think I die here. Yep.
With them.
So here's a good point, like, to go ahead and roll there to dodge that guy's shots. Roll here to dodge his shots. I think I do one more roll for safety. Yep. Because those guys have shotguns, and the shotguns are so unpredictable in this game, especially when the enemy's wielding it, So here, like, I have very, very limited ammo, and it's just a matter of, watching this is kind of insane, because if you've never seen a Max Payne speedrun, because I've just memorized so much of how the enemies are going to act and react and what they're going to do. So, like, I knew that guy was going to throw a grenade there, and standing behind the pillar, I'd be fine, no one's going to hit me.
Things were fast, going from bad to worse.
You could roll into this cutscene to get a little forward position. And this room is probably one of the most annoying rooms in the entire game, because right here, so this guy with the shotgun, you have to get a good damage roll on him. But secondly, you have to lead this guy. If you don't stutter that guy with your shots, he will get a shot off, and he's very accurate. And here's probably the toughest boss fight in the entire game. Very, very well-placed rolls to, there's a lot of crossfire in this room when you first get into it, so you have to keep moving and stay ahead of everyone's stream of fire that they're putting down. But the Ingrams, once again, you can see the Ingrams are just the most overpowered weapons in the game, because not so much of the power they bring, but the fire rate is insane, and enemies can get stuttered once they get hit. So it's basically not so much that you're putting a lot of damage onto them, but that you are not allowing them to fire back. That is the major point of that. And then I like to use the Desert Eagle a lot, just because it's very accurate, and it's really easy to get headshots with and take these guys out. This section is very, very tough. If you don't get this super jump fast enough, there's a guy that will come in the door behind you. But I do have a really good reserve of health here. And this guy, I spend a little extra time killing this guy. I usually don't. But he can be pretty accurate, and there's nothing worse than getting sniped right here when you're trying to get the super jump if he's right behind you. That super jump took me more attempts than I'd like, but it's okay. I made it up without dying. And the pace right now, the pace is really good, so... yeah, huge sequence break there. You know, usually you have to go down these corridors of shipping containers and deal with all these enemies, but because I super jumped over that gate, these enemies aren't even activated or anything like that, so you could just run to the very end. And since I never activated them, this trailer never blew up the bridge, or, you know what I mean, you get the point. You skip a bunch of it. This chapter is probably one of my favorite ones to play. Unfortunately, it goes horrible in this run. There's a boss fight at the end that really doesn't go my way. But now that I have the sniper rifle is, I guess by definition, the best weapon in the game, just because it's one-hit kills and, of course, just really, really accurate. So instead of going through this maze of boxes and triggering all these guys, you could just super jump to the very end of it. And this guy, he spawned out there, and you're not supposed to be able to get through this door until he walks in it. But if you use the baseball bat has enough reach to actually hit him outside the door, so he won't be blocking it. And instead of doing, you know, this whole thing of getting onto that lift and moving through all these snipers, you can just jump into the water. Pretty much skipping that whole sequence of the whole sniping sequence, and also this next building right here entirely. Just by going out of bounds, the next area is already loaded with the ship and the boss that you have to kill to end the chapter. So super jump up here, and then we are technically back in bounds here. And this goes really, really bad for me because I want to make sure all these guys on the stairs are dead before I start the boss fight. And I thought that guy with the deagle was dead, but he's still alive. But I quick save into this boss fight, and typically what you want to do is, as you quick save into the boss fight, you can get a grenade down thrown at the boss. And so you take out most of his little henchmen there, and also get a lot of good damage on the boss ahead of time before the fight even begins. Unfortunately, because of that guy with the Desert Eagle, I had to take care of him. Now I'm dealing with a pretty much intended strat of this entire boss fight, and it's completely horrible because I just, you know, when things don't go to plan and I just don't know how the enemies are going to react or what they're going to do because I'm just not used to dealing with this type of situation. So yeah, a lot of time lost there, and probably the biggest slump of this run is this exact fight. I lost, you know, what is it? Nearly 9 seconds there. And that's just brutal because it shouldn't have been that way. Just because I you know, thought I killed that one guy with the Desert Eagle at the start and I didn't. And that's just how easy it is to really lose time in you know, the pace that I was competing against. This level, everyone kind of remembers this level. It's not too much to do here in a speed run. You just run through the restaurant like normal. Most of the fire is you know, it doesn't actually do damage. It's kind of like a graphic effect, so you can run through the edges of it and not be too worried. So that, you know, that helps you get like better lines running through the rooms. And this guy typically he doesn't like to go down, but he was being very good for me on this run.
He was trying to put out my flames with gasoline.
And then here, you know, another good expression of the Ingrams here, because there's just so many enemies and you want to stutter them.
The way out of this disco inferno.
And that, you see, I kind of hesitated there because I wanted the enemies to walk a little bit forward. just to kind of separate themselves. Because what ends up happening in this game is that when you have a line of enemies like that, if one of them is dead or they're in their dying animation, they will still absorb the bullets, and so the person behind them will be completely unaffected and will still be able to shoot through them into you. So it's kind of unfair in that regard, but that's why I try to give those 3 guys in a row a little bit of separation so I can kind of, you know, strafe and spray left to right or right to left and make sure I'm stuttering all of them.
Upstairs, the trio tangoed down the manor halls to the silent rhythm of their murderous hearts. The blood of their victims rust on their lips. Vince Mignano.
And this is probably my favorite chapter of the game. This chapter is just so fun to play.
The pistol was a frozen lump in my
There's
hand,
kind of just a
piercing
lot
the
of
skin,
really cool
gnawing me to the bone.
like gunplay, and I spent a lot of time practicing this level because there's a lot of if you want to practice, like, you know, just getting down a lot of the shooting sequences and how to dodge enemies, this is a great chapter to play. And pretty much everything I do is intentional. Every roll I do, every time I strafe a certain way, it's just so planned.
My fortune had been told.
The super jump up the stairs skips pretty much the entire level. And Vince spawns, and as long as you kill him before he backs up into that room, you're good. And the Ingrams, yeah, as you can see, are just absolutely the best weapon.
No, I told them not to. Drop it. Don't move.
Game over, Max Payne.
Still lost about, you know, like 4 seconds on that chapter just because I have it down so good. It's hard. Some of these chapters I just, you know, I have it down to a T that it's hard to not, you know, like stay on pace with them. And Angel of Death was definitely one of them. So in the second dream sequence, it's a bit longer than the first, but it's mostly just going to be rolling. The only thing to really notice here is that I don't roll up the stairs because I want Max to run, because right now he's in a very low health situation. And when Max is in low health, he'll actually kind of waddle. He'll hold his, you know, side and waddle, and he'll run a bit slower.
The letter was staring at me.
So by running up the stairs, I allow Max to regain a little, you know, he kind of regenerates a bit of health
Paper looked dangerous.
to the point where I can run like normal, and that helps a lot. And plus, rolling up the stairs just isn't fast, so it's a good time to do it. And again, rolling because it's faster than running, because we are in a perpetual bullet time. This roll, oh my gosh, I forgot about this. I almost completely fell off the edge. It was a pretty bad roll there. But for the most part, this is all standard. This is the time to catch your breath before part 3 begins, because part 3 is just absolute insanity. Enemies are way tougher to take down. They're equipped with way better weapons. That, you know, there's a lot of environmental things going on.
Max! No! Max! Murderer! You killed her!
And of course, I shoot the wife for good luck. Always give her a little taste of pain. And then coming into part 3, chapter 1. Part 3, chapter 1 is where I lose 98% of my runs. This chapter is just, there's a certain matter of luck that just goes on. Because you're basically running through the chapter hoping that the enemies in the surrounding area don't land shots on you. That's pretty much it. Quick save at the start of this chapter to gain control of Max, so I can kind of get him forward here.
Molten metal boiled and bubbled like a witch's brew.
So even though, like, even during this part of the cutscene, I still have control of Max, but I don't want to move him because I don't want to give the enemies a head start. So I kind of stand still as the cutscene ends. Boom. Now it's time to go. Come out the room. Drop onto this container here. So even though, like, I have the sniper rifle, which is good, but I don't have an aimer. When you quick save into the beginning of the chapters, you end up losing your little aiming reticle. So with the sniper rifle, you have to be pretty I don't know, familiar with the way it fires in order to land shots. So pretty much that whole room, I was just hoping nobody hits me, which I come in with full health and a painkiller on reserve, so I already know this is great. I do take the time to snipe that guy because he throws a grenade, and it's almost like it's very difficult to avoid it. Super jump up there, which usually doesn't trigger this guy, but I jumped a little bit late. I didn't really mind because I did have that painkiller on reserve that I usually have already used before that point. These guys go down pretty easy because they all want to throw grenades, so you can just kill them during their animation and pick up their grenades, which will be really good for a later chapter. And then another example, this enemy, you almost always have to lead the bullets. You have to, like, lead the bullets ahead of him because he just runs a very, very direct path. So that chapter went well. Obviously you can see I saved 10 seconds there, and even in my PB it went well. I considered it well. So, and then here, like, you'll be seeing me use a lot more bullet time just because these guys are very, very quick, and when there's multiple guys that have just, you know, very powerful weapons, you have to kind of plan and route how you're going to take them out. And it's, I mean, bullet time, it just gives Max such a head start over them that's what you need. You just jump over all those lasers there. You jump over that fire and that fire. You can jump over even those two streams of fire, but it's a little bit risky. And plus I want the sniper rifle ammo, so whatever. I spend the 2 seconds to go ahead and grab it because that sniper rifle ammo comes into a big role here later in part 3. This guy is scripted to die. You just have to shoot towards him or even just run towards him. This room is, again, I'm just hoping nobody can actually land shots on me.
The monitor showed me the way.
And I'm doing so good on health and painkillers here. There's a case of painkillers in this room that I don't even go for because it's almost completely, like, unreal that I have full health and this amount of painkillers at this point. So I could just go ahead and skip that case there. But these guys, after I shoot through this wall that breaks, these guys will always, like, land shots on you. They're very accurate. So I just go ahead and dump a few painkillers on that. I don't really mind. Boom, shoot the tripwires. I switched to Deagle. Deagle's more accurate than the Colt. Plus I want to reserve my Colt Commando ammo. These guys, you know, they can't hit anything, so... the guys in this room are actually very accurate, so I quick save there. Because hitting these buttons, sometimes Max will stutter for just a second too long, and these guys will actually be able to land shots on you. It's very scary, that room. But once you're in this corner, it's good. They won't move at all to try and get you. Now the Deep Six, which is pretty much, I mean, you can, I don't want to say it's an autoscroller, this level, but it's very straightforward. This level is almost like the Roscoe Street Station of Part 3. You know, like, the enemies are really predictable. There's not too many enemies. You have to wait on an NPC.
Even if it would take me down to the cold, cavernous depths of a grave.
You can't do this.
So yeah, I mean, wow, 45 seconds ahead. I end up losing, spoiler alert, I'm going to ruin it. I end up losing a good amount of time here in the late game after this chapter, but I mean, this pace is just great. Absolutely. 35:06 when I ended part 3, chapter 2, or Hidden Truths, it says on the split. That's, I mean, 35:06. That's, it's just a great, great time. Truly. So most of these guys, I mean, they don't really put up too much of a fight once you know how they kind of move around. And 2 free painkillers there, that's great. And then quick saving into this cutscene's a little bit tricky because you want to do it quick enough to where those doors are still open. And then you have to guide Max. So even though, like right here, I still have control of Max and I'm trying to guide him to the next elevator. I kind of screw up a bit. I get turned around and I honestly didn't know where I was at that point. But yeah, you can almost get it. You can get him directly in front of this elevator. You know, if you are keen enough of where you're at. Saves a couple seconds, you know. At this point it matters when, you know, when you're going for this pace, those seconds make all the world of a difference. I've experimented with trying to find a way past even, you know, getting this NPC out and, you know, just trying to find a way to skip this section of getting him out and then getting back up to the original floor and then, you know, it's just frustrating. I feel like there's got to be a really good skip here that you can get to where you can get this guy onto the original floor to get you through the decontamination chamber without having to actually, you know, follow him through the elevators and all that. Or a way to just get through this chamber without him. That would be great. That would be fantastic. So now you just run through the lab. This chapter serves mostly as a very story-driven point, but, you know, I don't give a shit about that in speedrun. You can just jump on that laser, and it blows up all the other lasers, and Max won't take any damage. So instead of having to carefully navigate your way through that room, you can just just jump on the laser.
A long time ago, there was nothing more for me here.
And then I got the deagle out because it's highly accurate and it lets me. Oh, never mind. Typically pretty accurate. But yeah, you can just shoot that laser before you even get in. And now it's time for probably. I know I said, okay, like Take Me to Cold Steel Part 3 Chapter 1 is where 98% of my runs die. Of those 2% runs that make it through that chapter, this next chapter is where 98% of those die. So, Backstabbing Bastard, the next chapter, is probably the most intensive chapter in the game. And the splits I'm running against actually had a really, really, really good time for it. So right now, going in, I already know I'm probably going to lose time here, and I just want to mitigate how much time I'm going to lose. So I told you earlier about, you know, picking up sniper rifle ammo, you know, why I went out of my way to get extra ammo. It's because of this chapter. Because there's a lot of guys that are at very long distance from you, and just having the ability to just go ahead and, you know, take them out with a quick no-scope there and not have to worry about them is just great. So it's very worthwhile to have some reserved sniper rifle.
On the take. A cowardly right-hand man fleeing from the scene, leaving his paid thugs to do.
There's only 2 super jumps in this chapter. The first one, I do it right here. And what this super jump does is it skips the trigger for these guys, which is good, because what this chapter essentially is that everybody that's behind you that you don't kill is just perpetually chasing you to the end of the level. So if you slow down or stop, and I think I get a bit of that right here. Yeah, so those guys that were behind me at the start of the chapter have now caught up and are firing at me. So you have to keep running forward. So the less guys that you trigger to actually move, the better. Because, yeah, you want to move fast for, you know, speedrun purposes, obviously, but you also want to move fast because there's just a wave after wave of guys chasing you. So you can see why the sniper rifle just, oh my gosh. You can just clear out all these rooms here. And the reason why I'm like pausing a bit is because there's invisible death lines that if you cross them too early, Max will just die, like with the cars blowing up. And I guess they put that in the game so that you don't move too fast through the level, and you actually take the time to like take out the enemies and stuff, but there's always a way around it. And super jump over this gate here. This skips a wave of enemies. Typically you have to run around the back of the garage, but you could just super jump there. And because I super jump there, these two guys don't activate, but these other two do. It's weird. Here, just dodging guys, just trying to get to the end. So, like, yeah, I have all of these guys chasing me at this point. And I just don't want to slow down because the second I do, even that guy, I wanted to get rid of him, but I'd rather keep moving forward than take the time to, get him, because I don't want anyone else behind us to get a chance to even catch up. And then here's probably the major fail of the chapter here, is I try to get a grenade over here so that when these guys will always scripted, they'll run that way, and usually the grenade can get them both. Well, my grenade was a little bit short and I missed both of them. So now I have to use Ingrams, I have to use bullet time, I have to roll, I have to use my reserve of painkillers. It just cost me more than time, it cost me ammo and painkillers there. This boss, typically once you start shooting him or you approach him, he'll vanish to the other side, and it becomes a game of running around the garage to try and kill him. But you could just throw grenades and he'll take the damage, and take him out that way without having him run away on you. You can also use a sniper rifle too. Sniper rifle is a bit slower, a bit safer, but a bit slower. And you also have to have enough grenades. So I've known throughout this entire run, like, where I need to pick up grenades in part 3 to have enough to kill him. Which isn't too hard. You could pick it up pretty naturally.
It was an impressive floor show, but I decided to leave early anyway. It was only a one-story fall. Lucky me.
This chapter goes really bad. This chapter should only take about a minute at most, but I have some very, very ugly deaths. And if you jump over these lasers, this guy on my right, he doesn't trigger. I lost track of that guy, and he ended up getting quite a few shots on me. This super jump is probably one of the harder super jumps, because Max barely makes enough height to get onto this railing. So it's very possible that even when you get the super jump, he will not get on top of that railing and he'll fall down, and you will probably die from the fall damage. And okay, so oh man, I don't even want to talk about it, because it's literally one guy that just gets me. Yeah, these guys in the suits, they have so much health, like it's kind of ridiculous. And then there, I was a bit too close to that laser when I shot it. But yeah, those guys in the suits, who pretty much are who you face for the rest of the game. They just absorb bullets like nothing. Makes it very annoying to deal with. And you can see, if you look at the splits, from the past 2 chapters, I've just drained 21 seconds because of it seems so minuscule, the mistakes I've made, but
the inner circle had quite a track record.
It does cost a lot of time. Of course, once you're pretty much used to it, but quick saved into the start of this chapter so I can get control of Max and get the super jump before the monologue was over. Another thing too is that when you quick save into chapters, the enemies actually have this kind of increased health. it takes a little more rounds to kill them, and I'm not entirely sure why, what the technical basis for that is. It's just the truth, because there's certain chapters that you don't quick save into for that sole reason, is that the enemies with increased health are just too formidable to even, you know, speedrun against. And the hard part about this is running through these floors is that you might be able to hear it, but there's a guy with a sniper on every single level, and the sniper, I mean, a sniper rifle will kill you in one hit if it hits you. So you have to kind of plan the route you run. And then here, I just started doing this recently because I have reserve grenades. Toss a grenade over there. If it kills him, it kills him. If not, you know, at least it was something. And then I had to make very good. I just realized, like, I was pretty much dead right there. I probably should have died. But if you actually die as that chapter's fading out, when you come into this chapter right here, Part 3, Chapter 7, Max won't have any weapons. And it's the only way that you could really soft lock your run and completely end it. Because as levels are fading out, enemies can still fire at you and you can still take damage. So if you die as you go into a chapter, the game will reload you back into the previous chapter. In this chapter's case, if you die coming into this chapter, you'll still load into this chapter, but you won't have any weapons.
Colder than a walk-in fridge.
And not only does that make it impossible to fight enemies, but it makes it impossible to super jump. Because remember, you need a one-handed to two-handed weapon, or a two-handed to a one-handed weapon to perform the super jumps. And if you get the glitch, then you'll end up just having a Beretta and a lead pipe, which are both one-handed weapons. It makes it impossible to super jump up to this elevator. And I used to kind of like joke around and use dual Berettas here, because dual Berettas are just insanely inaccurate when it comes to hitting these tripwires. But they always worked until I had one run that was on a really good PB pace, and I lost it because the second to last laser, I couldn't hit it with the dual Berettas and ended up blowing me up. So I decided, okay, I'm not joking around, I gotta switch to something really accurate here. So Colt Commando has good range, and it could take care of those wires. This chapter is annoying when you're speedrunning this game, because there's probably a good full 2 minutes that you spend solely just riding elevators, and you just want to go, but you have these kind of like really autoscroller elevators that you have to deal with. And you know, at this point, I'm just looking at the pace and the clock, and I'm just, come on.
Elevator access to the mainframe. From there, I'd be able to override the security locks and get to her office.
People think this room's hard. If you literally roll twice, kill that guy, roll once, kill the second guy, and then roll to the elevator, you will never get hit. It's like a formula. Roll twice, kill the first guy, roll once, kill the second guy, roll to the elevator. It's I've seen other runners have a lot of problem with that room, because I think they try to play it too risky or something. I'm not sure. This room's pretty straightforward. Kill these guys, use grenade on this to take down the security system. Those guys spawn in the elevator. I mean, this game is just, when you know where guys are going to spawn and things like that, you can just fly. And here's our last long elevator ride, where Max monologues to himself about how cold and dark and desperate it's been. Or something like that, I'm not sure.
Seen from this height, the night seemed to stretch on to eternity. A hint of desperation had crept into the snowstorm, as if it was trying to get it all out before the end.
So I came up with a strat for this room that I really like, because the guys in this room, they have Ingrams, jackhammers, they have some pretty good stuff. So if I just toss a grenade right up there, yeah, just take care of those two guys, because they could be annoying. This guy gets a good hit on me. I usually roll right there, and that time I didn't. I have no idea why I didn't roll right there. Equip the grenade before I start the next chapter, because having the grenade already out and ready to go saves you a lot of worry. And there's a lot of little stuff like this. a lot of really little stuff that goes into this run like that. You know, like what weapon am I holding? Because I always use the same weapons for the same exact scenario. It's never just, you know, off the cuff. It's very planned how I approach the enemies in this game. And I want to do a very thorough tutorial about that, how to approach each room and how to approach you know, the obstacles in this game, and kind of put my methodology into it as to what I was thinking. And you know, hopefully someone will get some use out of it, or you know, I can get some feedback about what might be faster and things like that. So I super jump onto the statue here because the helicopter cannot hit you when you're on top of the statue, so you could just lay rounds into the helicopter. And even though you can't destroy it, pretty much the helicopter won't disappear until you put X amount of rounds into it or enough time has gone by. It's faster just to shoot it. So if I can get on top of the statue and just lay down, you know, what is it, like 50 rounds of Colt into it and get him to go away so I can trigger the end of the game, even better. Otherwise, if you don't get onto the statue, you have to kind of dodge him a bit. And the very end of the game is just a gauntlet of super jumps, and I get this one first try, which is good because there's 2 of these jumps that take me forever. Honestly, probably a lot of time that I lost, or that I could have saved. Not time I lost, but time I could have saved if these super jumps went just a bit better, honestly. So yeah, the whole end of the game you could just skip by super jumping to the very top of the Acer building, and then taking out that nasty final boss, which is the tower. Yeah. For great, you know, this game, for having such great boss fights, it really is kind of a kick in the butt there that the final boss is, you know, inanimate. But anyway, yeah, you super jump to the very top. You trigger Nicole Horn to spawn here. Boom. And then what you're doing here is that you're getting 2 cutscenes to play at the same time. So you're getting Nicole running away, but you're also getting the tower beginning to collapse. So it saves time. Instead of watching 2 separate cutscenes, you just watch one. These final round of guys are all grouped together, so a nicely placed grenade can just go ahead and end them. And take out that cable, snipe this cable, takes me 1, 2, 3 shots, but that's it right there. 51-33. And you can see him in my video. I just got up and walked away, honestly, because it's been a grind. For how long I've been running this game to get this time, and even with this time, it's not perfect. Sub 51 is completely doable, but I just, you know, to get it down this low and to have as many things go right as it did, it's just been a real struggle, you know. So like I said, I kind of mentioned it just shortly. My goal is I want to create a very thorough tutorial, even though you can watch pretty much any of my PBs and replicate any, you know, all the movement and learn this game through trial and error. You know, this game took me a long time to get good at because I didn't really have that resource. I had a resource for, you know, the glitches and how they work, but I just, and part of it too is that I was just stubborn a bit, but big shout out to the page on Speed Demos Archive if you want to look it up. Max Payne Speed Demos Archive. There's a page that will teach you every glitch in the game.
Mark to everything that had led to this point.
I have somewhat of a tutorial that's floating on YouTube. You can watch that. It's pretty lengthy. And my goal is to my real goal is to make a tutorial that it's more informative and not as drawn out as what I've already done.
get closer to heaven.
But yeah, that's Max Payne 1 and 51:33. A great accomplishment for me, even though, you know, I could always feel, speedrunners, you always feel, you know, it could have been better, could have been faster. I feel like this run could have been a sub 51.
My ghosts
But
release me from their haunting down below.
again, I'm very excited about this run, and I'm glad that you watched it, and I'm glad I got to share it with you, and I hope that maybe you'll pick this game up, do a speed run.
There in the crowd, standing by the sidelines.
No, it's up to you, but I just hope you enjoyed watching it, and I hope I gave you some insight into the run. If you have never seen a Max Payne run before, maybe you watch me stream on Twitch all the time, and you know, even though you might be familiar with the glitches or know how they work, hopefully I gave you some insight on the run itself. And that's it. That will do it. Thanks again for watching and checking it out, and hopefully someone beats this time. I'm very hopeful someone will. And then I can get back into it. Back into the grind. Alright. That's it for me.